No, that's okay. Okay, yeah, I know Jennifer and Marina need to move, right, so I can see you. But anyway, so we put together, at that time that we presented in June, was the estimated effective tax rate at 59.15. So again, that was our best estimate based on numbers that Gilbert was getting from the appraisal district. So we get the final numbers on the 25th, which is next week. So any adjustment that we need to make on that effective tax rate, he will present with the budget document on the 1st. So, but we put together what you were shown was around that effective tax rate.
So that would be the rate that would bring us the same amount of income as last year, even though our sales tax income is down, which is not, it's related to income from the budget, but that's the amount that would bring us the same amount of income from our property taxes.
Yes, ma'am.
But we still have a shortfall
Yes, ma'am.
from sales tax that we don't have another place to assess.
And that's why you saw a lot of the decreases from the department heads. We knew going in that we were going to have shortfall in revenue from the sales tax area, so that's why they presented the decreases in it. So we talked about needing the additional police officers. This is a way to do that with this additional tax rate. And then Gilbert, the debt service fund, we're going to have to move some more money onto the debt service side. We can do it this year, or we can do it next year. It's coming. We can do it in 18 or 19, so it's coming.
And I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
The budget amendment we did today, is that money that now we're planning on spending, was that included in the budget that we're working on?
It would have been included in the money above the 25% reserve as one-time money.
One-time money?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I appreciate you asking that, because it's very important to remember one-time versus recurring costs, because when you start adding personnel and costs that are associated with personnel, you've got to have a recurring revenue to match that. I don't guess you have to. That's good fiscal policy to do that. There's nothing illegal about it, but it's good fiscal policy. It's kind of like I told somebody today, you start doing that, it's almost the equivalent of paying your mortgage from your savings account, and when your savings account is totally gone and you're not replenishing it, how are you going to pay your mortgage? So that's kind of how you look at the recurring versus the one-time money. So I know Gilbert wants to say something.
Never.
I got some questions for you.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Can you go into more depth on the final two items on that sheet? And what
Final two items.
specifically?
The debt service?
Debt service and the maintenance programs.
Okay, on the debt service. As you're aware, the two things really that's affecting that. I think I mentioned this during the budget presentation. Years ago, we did an abatement on the utility company downtown years ago. And ever after that, we issued bonds. When we issued those bonds, we made some assumption those abatements would come off a certain time of that time period of that abatement. Well, as you recall, that particular abatement went south. It went bankrupt and everything else. The bank took it over, and that abatement's no longer there anymore. Okay, that's point one. Point two is that you were over the past year, our values went down. So that add more to it. If it was just the values themselves, I want to have the $198,000 difference between the revenue and expenses, i.e. deficit. That's causing that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
To explain why that happened? Now, hindsight 2020, if we say don't make any assumptions on the abatements in the future, well, we could do that, but we have never had one of those abatements gone south. You know, it's like in 2024, we got Caterpillar's abatement coming on board. Hopefully that don't go south, because that's part of a huge plan in our CIP. So, you know, if I have to do it again, I still have to consider the abatements in play in how I do the debt structure and everything else.
You're saying if we don't do it this year, we have to do it
It's
next
coming
year?
in
But
19.
what it's going to happen is One could be, for some miracle, you get a 4 or 5% bump in your appraisal values. I'm just saying a miracle, okay? I didn't say it was realistic.
I did.
That can also help a lot in offsetting that deal. But let's say your appraised value is consistent with what I'm thinking right now is going to be pretty flat, besides any new improvements. And the improvement's about 38,000, right? I think I used 35, by the way. The improvement's at 39, standing as of last week. But put that aside. You at the same level this year. It comes at the same value last year. You have no growth. Guess what? I have that deficit because your debt service structured over the years. You made some assumptions on this growth of appraised values. What hampers it more, I had this abatement. That's $90 million that was coming on board. It's no longer there.
Okay.
We're gonna pay for it regardless.
And then the maintenance, parks,
Maintenance part.
streets, maintenance programs.
Several ways to look at that, Mr. Pugnight. One is that we got a golf course we're looking at now. And I got to look beyond just those front end money that we're looking at right now to get things up to par. Because you remember, that's to me, that is just startup money for any organization. And back to the enterprise, water fund, environmental, we're never a enterprise at the beginning. Something has to be given. So we need to look progressive and say, okay, if these RFPs, and the best solution was a management fee contract where the city is responsible for the operation, financially, revenue, expenses, and there's a management fee attached to it to pay them to do this, i.e., for example, Rockport, they paid a management fee contract system, that's $100,000 net of everything else that they collect. If they collect more, great. But I'm saying I don't know what the future holds right now without having something steady. So that's part of the idea I was showing Ms. Garrett on that. We got to start thinking we got issues, how we're going to deal with this and how the contract's going to be developed. I can't tell you the answer right now, but that's the concept that was moving forward with that. The other part of the street maintenance, folks, about a month ago, we had to scrape up some money because the bids came in higher. And we're seeing an increase in our costs, and that's basically for the street side. But that's those two deals. I hope I'm able to give you some insight on those. Now, back to Ms. Garrett's point of view about the debt service, since you didn't ask this question, but I'll give you this mulligan. Can't hint, but anyway. Can we pass 1 year and just roll the dice the next year? Yeah, we can do that. I think we'd be financially stable yet. It's not going to hamper a lot. But I think the priority here is, I believe, is the officers. And then, something, if we don't do it now on the park or the street, then down the road, we're going to have to face that, whatever happens during this whole process. It's trying to give you more insight how you look at this. But I think your priority here is your officers, and then second be the park and street, and then the debt.
I
If I have to
agree
put
with
it
you on that.
Gilbert, you get on the 25th, you get your final
On the 25th.
adjusted certified, is it certified roll?
Certified road. I'm glad you brought that up because, believe me, Victoria County Appraisal doesn't like me right now because every week I pick up the phone, I want numbers. Every week I get numbers. So since the beginning of June, I get these numbers. And as of last Friday, I believe I used 59 as effective tax rate. Run it again, it's close to 50.
5915.
5915.
It's about, right now, it's running with its current numbers from last Friday's at 58 some change.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you can see but the whole idea of the budget concept that we put together is that we frame it around the effective tax rate, so it's a moving concept itself.
To be honest with you, my thoughts on this, I'm on board for the officers, and the other two I'm under consideration. But I want to move forward with the full penny because knowing how the process works, it's easier to come down.
Yep.
And as a reminder for council,
Yes, sir.
that's a good strategy. At least we have a number to start with, move down. But just remember that with new rules and everything, council, to have a tax increase, you need 5, no less than 5.
Right.
Majority. Okay, just making sure everybody knew that.
Super majority, right?
Correct.
I just want to ask a question. Gilbert, is that estimated tax rate supposed to equal the 1 cent? If I had all those totals?
No, ma'am, if you take the .53, take the 19.28. I try to highlight with darker green. It's a little fancy.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am, I know.
3414.
I'm the old fashioned, you start with a number, do your
yeah,
double
yeah,
line and
yeah,
all that,
okay,
but
I
it's
saw
like,
that. I
you
said,
know, I'm trying to be a
Gilbert,
little
that's 1.53,
creative.
not-
The labor's not, it's not Arthur Anderson account either, so, you know.
Do a little minus, a little something, in there. I said, man, this math.
Point taken.
Just,
I
did it too.
oh
last
my
time.
God, I said, Gilbert?
don't have, did you have comments?
I agree with Councilman Bachnet. The two police officers are a no-brainer. The other two, I'm still thinking about, but I would say that in the way that you have them slotted is my priority from that standpoint. But I agree with the 1 penny and work from there.
Mr. Alapaska?
Well, we've gone from 70.5 cents to 59.55. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to fix the problems. Or we can kick it down the road. And that's gonna bite us every time.
What year, Mr. Alapaska, was your first year on council? When were you, no, I'm not,
What's that?
when were you first elected? When were you first
When did we
elected
start
to
in
council?
Victoria, 1824?
What year?
No. The Earth's crust was still
You
cooling at
guys-
that time, so I couldn't have been here.
Y'all stop picking. Was it
No, it was
05?
70.5 cents.
No.
2004, go look it up.
It was 70 even. No, I'm not really disagreeing with you. My point is Mr. Halpaska's right. I mean, we can all pontificate all night long about that, but you're absolutely right. It was 69 cents when I got on, so that's 10 pennies ago. And I know that's a point of contention. There's staff that argue with me and kind of still tease me about the fact that we did what we did over all those years. And even amongst us on council, we disagree, but I agree completely with what we did. It is what it is. So it makes it more comfortable for me that we take the revenue we need and we explain what we're doing with it. And I'm very comfortable with this penny. I see exactly what we're doing, so.
And my one point, unfortunately, the past 4 or 5 years, we enjoyed a sales tax level that we had never experienced before. But reality is, are we going to have another Eagle Ford Shale explosion like that to generate that type of sales tax? I love to see it. I don't want to be negative about it, but I think your major source of revenue now, who becomes a primary number one, is your ad valorem tax.
Well,
When
the
was
other
it that
point
way
I'd like
again? We
to
talked
make-
about it last time.
I'm sorry?
We talked about it last time. When was the last time that had happened?
When,
09? When it had
When
that
ad
correction.
valorem was the major source of revenue instead of sales
I
tax?
would think 9 or 10,
Yeah, I have that.
because 11 exceeded it.
About the time we started trying to improve our reserve, because the reserve is at 15%, so we incrementally, we knew, and we cautioned council, you get that volatility in that sales tax, we need to improve our reserve. So,
And I would like to admit to everyone that the numbers and the calculations required of us by the state are faulty. They don't take into account inflation. So personnel are gonna want additional wages, things are gonna go up, they don't really go down. Nothing, police cars, whatever you talk about, garbage trucks, front-end loaders, personnel. They don't allow for that in that calculation, so it's faulty by definition. You take that and go from 70.5 down to 59.55,
Okay. Well,
and this is the result.
it looks like council, y'all okay with the penny moving forward with the?
Yeah.
And, maybe the total numbers will come in and your effective will be under 59, which means you add a penny and it's still under 60. It's just psychological, okay? I'm just,
Well, if you want to go that route,
no, just,
I can tell you it's going to be under.
it's just psychological for me. It's okay. Obviously, though, we're in a work session, and so anything's fair game on the budget right
And
now.
was there any other, tax rate, but was there any
Right.
other questions about budget presentations? We're all prepared to
Right.
answer those.
So just to,
Mr. Halpaska wasn't through, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, I was just gonna state that I'm probably the most accessible just because I'm in a small business where people can talk to me anytime they want to. And surprisingly, nobody gripes too much about the tax rate or the taxes. They gripe about, when are we gonna fix this? When are we gonna fix that? And what are we gonna do about such and such? I think they could stand a penny or two and be more comfortable than if we cut it. I just have never had anybody say, gee, it's great y'all went down on the tax rate. Never. Not one time in 13, 14 years.
I always remind everybody that over 50% of my property taxes go to the school district.
amen.
When they complain about city taxes and how high they are, I said, have you really paid attention to your bill and know where the majority of your taxes do go? And I'm not saying that's not a worthwhile endeavor. I just think some of the heat that we sometimes face could be directed in accountability ask over there too. And maybe they are, maybe they get that too, I don't know.
Well, that would be deflecting some heat, but not really. We're on the hot seat right now.
So
There's no way
just
to
to,
avoid it.
just to repeat, I'm gonna make an assumption, 1 cent above the effective tax rate. In addition to that, the budget that you're gonna see August the 1st will include these following new programs, at which time you can decide which one you want to cut, which will reduce the tax rate, if that's the case, correct? Okay.
And go ahead, Ms. Scott.
Well, I was going to say, if we're in budget session, and you said it's open discussion, this city has made a lot of adjustments. They have made a lot of cuts in recent years. One of the things that we heard tonight was on mowing, which is something that's been cut. And so I was just going to ask whether that's something that can be looked at as we're looking at the budget. But no, actually, I want to say that differently. I'm not specifically saying that's the thing to look at. I think that staff is aware of where there are cuts that are hurting our citizens, and maybe those are things that should be looked at. And so, if that makes any sense, I know that there are cuts and staff's brought them to us and told us about them, but our citizens there are various things. Some of them, they're just complaining, but some of them are really hurting folks. So I just ask that that be looked at the same time.
I know, in particular with the mowing, we've got really good mowing maps. We know where we're mowing, we know where we're not mowing, we know where we're not doing the right-of-ways, and we're asking the citizens to mow to the back of the curb and to the street. So we can easily tell you, if we start that up again, what that cost is going to be. And it's probably more than that 100,000 that we're asking for parks and streets. So, but, we can.
A lot of, the problems that we face are not solved in one budget. I mean, as you guys know, in the years I've been here, we've built several new fire stations. We have a new Parks Department office coming up and a lot of improvements. We have a street program in place. We just need to fund it. My biggest concern over the next couple of years is police department. I'm really happy to see, that staff brought this for these 2 new positions, and I think you guys have seen some of the same information I have. It's probably not enough. We're not going to solve it all at one time, but we have to give some attention to that. My feedback from the people and their workload and their caseload, I'm very concerned, and I'm just saying that so the public can consume that. So going forward the next few years, perhaps, hopefully, good things will happen and we'll have revenue to start to solve some of those problems. I am very optimistic with respect to economic development. I can't help but get excited. I think our efforts with VDC will pay off at some point. I hope it's in the next couple of years. We could get a project that makes recent projects look small in comparison. And I'll keep my fingers crossed and hope all our efforts pay off. And, that changes this dynamic drastically. So I'm very optimistic. So, good things. Okay. Who else has any questions?
I think those were great finishing comments.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, for your patience tonight. So we'll conclude our work session and we're adjourned.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, sir.